Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everyone around you is happy. It's not just the fleeting moments of joy we all experience. No, this is a deeper, pervasive sense of happiness that fills every corner of existence. It's in the smiles of strangers on the street, the cheerful posts flooding your social media feeds, the perfectly curated lives that seem to shine with an almost supernatural glow. And then you stop for a moment, and you ask yourself, why am I not feeling this? It's a paradox that many of us live with daily, the illusion of constant happiness. Society pushes us to embrace it, to embody it, and to live it as if it's not just a feeling, but a state of being. Everywhere we turn, we are told that happiness is not only attainable, but it is the ultimate goal of our existence. Self-help books, motivational speakers, Instagram influencers, they all promise us one thing, the secret to everlasting happiness. But beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect world lies an unsettling truth. What if this pursuit of perpetual happiness comes at a price? What if the cost of constantly chasing joy, of bending ourselves into the shape of society's ideal happiness, has consequences that we can't yet see, or worse, ones we've ignored for far too long? There is a quiet, invisible cost to this relentless pursuit, a toll that we pay not in money, but in something far more precious, our authenticity. And that price, though hidden in plain sight, is often too high for most to recognize until it's too late. Think about the last time you were told to just stay positive in the face of something difficult. Think about the countless times you've suppressed your anger, sadness, or frustration in favor of a smiling face. How many times have you laughed off a problem, pretending it didn't matter, simply because the world around you demanded you be happy? Now, pause for a moment. What if the act of constantly choosing happiness, of ignoring the complexities of your emotional life, has been conditioning you to deny essential parts of yourself? What if, by pretending to be happy, you've been sacrificing the very depth of your humanity? It is easy to be swept up in the whirlwind of societal expectations. We're told that happiness is a sign of success, of having it all together. But what if it's a trap? What if the relentless push to appear happy is a reflection of our deepest fears, our fears of confronting the uncomfortable, the painful, and the real? In a world obsessed with positivity, where frowns are frowned upon and sadness is a sign of weakness, can we truly afford to ask the most important question of all, what happens when we stop pretending? This is not merely a question about personal happiness. This is a question about the human condition. The pursuit of happiness, as it is taught to us, is a game with rules that might never have been ours to begin with. What if the true cost of always being happy is far more than we could ever imagine? How far are we willing to go to protect the illusion of happiness? And, in doing so, what are we losing in the process? The answer may not be as simple as we want it to be. But one thing is certain, to find it, we must first confront the contradiction that lies at the heart of this pursuit. Only then can we begin to understand the hidden cost of always being happy. To understand why the pursuit of constant happiness is so deeply ingrained in our lives, we must first explore the psychological and philosophical roots of this paradox. Why have we allowed ourselves to believe that happiness is not just a fleeting emotion but a permanent state we must inhabit? And why, when we feel the natural ebb and flow of emotions, do we label it as failure? It begins with a fundamental misunderstanding of the self. The human psyche is complex, layered with emotions, desires, memories, and fears. But for centuries, we have been conditioned to suppress the darker, more uncomfortable emotions in favor of a bright, shining exterior. As Carl Jung pointed out, the shadow, the unconscious part of the personality that contains our repressed emotions and desires, is often hidden from ourselves. Jung believed that we are all driven by a need to integrate these hidden aspects of our psyche, to confront our darker side, and to acknowledge that these emotions are just as much a part of us as our more pleasant ones. Yet, in the modern world, we are told not to dwell on these shadows, not to explore them, but to hide them away. Our world encourages us to shine, to smile, to appear perfectly happy at all times. From a young age, we are taught that sadness, anger, or frustration are signs of weakness, obstacles to our happiness. This has created a culture where to feel anything other than happiness is seen as a flaw, a failure to keep up with the unspoken standard. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who deconstructed many of the comforting illusions society holds dear, offers a profound insight into the nature of happiness. For Nietzsche, happiness was not a simplistic goal, but something much more layered and complex. He viewed life as full of struggle and suffering, arguing that happiness derived from overcoming hardship, from navigating the chaos of existence. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, the Overman or Superman, reflects this: an individual who transcends conventional values, embraces the full spectrum of life's emotions, and embraces suffering as part of the human experience. But our culture does not embrace suffering. Instead, it glorifies happiness to the point of obsession. Every marketing campaign, every motivational speaker, every image of a perfect life on social media reinforces the message that happiness is the only valid emotional state. There is no room for sorrow, for introspection, for grief. Philosophers like Arthur Schopenhauer, whose worldview centered on the inevitability of suffering, saw this relentless push for happiness as a dangerous delusion. Schopenhauer argued that happiness, in the conventional sense, was fleeting, a mere absence of pain, and that true wisdom comes from understanding the inevitability of suffering. To him, the human condition was not about avoiding pain but about learning how to navigate it, to find meaning in it. Yet, this wisdom has been largely lost in the pursuit of constant pleasure. We have mistaken happiness for the absence of all discomfort, and in doing so, we have silenced the deeper, more existential truths that challenge us to grow. In our desire to escape suffering, we've created a world that punishes those who struggle with difficult emotions. What does it mean for us as individuals and as a society when we view unhappiness as a moral failure? This tension between societal expectations and the complexity of our emotional lives is further complicated by the way we view happiness in relation to our identities. According to Viktor Frankl, the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, the pursuit of meaning, not happiness, should be at the core of human existence. Frankl's experiences in the concentration camps of World War II led him to realize that those who found meaning in their suffering were the most resilient. Happiness, to Frankl, was an afterthought. It came as a byproduct of finding purpose, not as a goal and end of itself. Yet, in our modern world, meaning has taken a back seat to happiness. We have been led to believe that meaning is secondary, that joy and pleasure should always come first. We are encouraged to pursue whatever makes us feel good in the moment, rather than confronting the deeper questions of existence. This superficial approach to happiness has deprived us of the tools we need to confront life's real challenges. The tragic irony is that, by focusing so intently on happiness, we have overlooked the profound wisdom offered by thinkers like Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, and Frankl. By rejecting the full spectrum of human experience, we have bound ourselves to a narrow, shallow version of existence. The more we chase the ideal of constant happiness, the further we move away from understanding who we truly are. But perhaps this all stems from a deeper, more existential question: what if we were not meant to be happy all the time? What if the expectation of happiness itself is a trap that distorts our perception of life, reducing it to a simple emotional state rather than a complex journey full of growth, transformation, and meaning? This question forces us to confront the very foundations of our belief system, and, in doing so, it leads us closer to understanding the hidden cost of always being happy. The true price, as we will soon explore, is the loss of depth, of meaning, and ultimately, of our authenticity. You may not notice it at first, but there are consequences, quiet, insidious consequences, when we prioritize happiness above all else. These consequences are not always visible on the surface, but they seep into the very fabric of our lives, shaping how we think, how we act, and how we relate to the world around us. Consider for a moment the way happiness is marketed to us in the modern age. Whether it's in the form of a glossy advertisement, a perfectly edited social media post, or a self-help book promising the secret to lasting joy, the message is clear. Happiness is something we can attain if we simply try hard enough. The result is an entire culture built on the idea that happiness is an individual achievement, a personal goal, and an emotional state we must constantly strive for. But the truth is, this model is based on a dangerous myth, a myth that, when internalized, begins to warp our perception of the world. Happiness is marketed as a destination, but in doing so, it has come to overshadow the journey itself. It leads us to focus solely on the end result, the final feeling of joy or contentment, rather than on the process of living a rich, complex, and fulfilling life. The very act of pursuing happiness, as it is portrayed in our culture, transforms it from a natural, fleeting emotion into a rigid, ongoing pursuit. This pursuit has consequences that extend beyond our emotional state. Research in psychology shows that this relentless focus on happiness can lead to what is known as hedonic adaptation. This is the psychological phenomenon where we quickly return to a baseline level of happiness after experiencing a positive event or obtaining something we desire. In other words, the joy we feel from achieving our goals or obtaining material goods is fleeting, and soon enough, we're left wanting more success, more pleasure, more happiness. This cycle of seeking external validation, achievement, and material success can create a dangerous feedback loop. We are constantly chasing after the next high, the next thing that will give us a temporary sense of happiness. But in doing so, we fail to recognize the deeper emptiness that lies underneath, the hollowness that comes from constantly seeking an elusive goal. Instead of finding fulfillment, we become trapped in a cycle of perpetual wanting, never truly satisfied, always chasing something just out of reach. But the consequences don't stop at individual dissatisfaction. On a societal level, the constant pursuit of happiness has led to the normalization of emotional suppression. Emotions like sadness, anger, and frustration, feelings that are part of the human experience, have become stigmatized. If you're not happy, something must be wrong with you. If you're struggling, it's seen as a personal failure, an inability to cope with life's challenges. This pressure to maintain a perpetual smile, to project happiness at all costs, creates an environment where people feel increasingly isolated in their struggles. Take, for instance, the rise of mental health issues in the modern age. Though we've become more aware of the importance of mental health, the societal pressure to always appear happy can create a paradox. The more we try to fake it till we make it, the more disconnected we become from our true feelings. This disconnect often exacerbates feelings of loneliness, anxiety, and depression. The pressure to appear happy, to meet the expectations of society, prevents many from seeking help or confronting their inner turmoil. Instead of acknowledging our struggles, we are told to mask them with a facade of happiness, pushing us further away from healing and self-acceptance. This emotional dissonance, the gap between what we feel and what we are expected to feel, can also distort our relationships. Think about the way we interact with friends, family, and even strangers. How often do we perform our happiness, playing a role that we think others want to see, rather than sharing our authentic selves? In doing so, we risk creating shallow, inauthentic connections. We sacrifice the depth of real relationships in favor of a social performance that values perfection over honesty. Over time, this leads to a growing sense of alienation, not just from others, but from ourselves. Neurologically, the constant pursuit of happiness can alter how we experience our emotions. The brain's reward system, which is activated when we experience pleasure or joy, becomes overstimulated by the relentless pursuit of positive experiences. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for feelings of pleasure and reward, is released every time we achieve something that brings us happiness. But as we chase that high, our brains adapt, becoming desensitized to the pleasure. This means that the more we seek happiness, the less fulfilling it becomes, leading us to crave even more stimulation, more achievement, more pleasure. The hidden cost here is subtle but pervasive. The more we pursue happiness, the more we disconnect from the deeper, richer experiences that make us human. We may experience temporary highs, fleeting moments of joy, but we are left with an underlying sense of dissatisfaction, a quiet longing that is never fully satisfied. This dissatisfaction often manifests as a deeper sense of emptiness, an existential void that we try to fill with superficial achievements or distractions. But the truth is, this emptiness cannot be filled by external accomplishments alone. It can only be addressed by confronting the uncomfortable parts of our emotional and psychological landscape, by acknowledging our pain, our struggles, and our complexities. This is the hidden cost of always being happy, the sacrifice of emotional depth, authentic connections, and true fulfillment. We have created a society that values the appearance of happiness over the substance of life itself. And in doing so, we have allowed ourselves to become slaves to a pursuit that can never truly bring us the peace and meaning we seek. The question remains, what is the true cost of chasing happiness? And can we find a way to break free from the cycle before it consumes us entirely? The answers lie not in more happiness, but in embracing the fullness of our human experience, the light and the dark, the joy and the sorrow, the satisfaction and the struggle. Only then can we begin to understand what it means to truly live. The relentless pursuit of happiness, with its bright promises and fleeting rewards, has led us into a trap. But what if the key to breaking free from this trap lies not in chasing after more happiness, but in radically shifting our perspective by embracing a philosophy that dares us to ask, what if the answer is not more joy, but a deeper, more authentic engagement with life and all its complexity? The answer to breaking free is not as simple as rejecting happiness outright. It's not about giving up on joy altogether, but about rethinking what happiness truly means and, more importantly, how it should fit into the larger fabric of our existence. To break free, we must challenge the deeply ingrained notion that happiness is a constant, unchanging goal and instead recognize that the full spectrum of emotions, including sorrow, pain, and struggle, is necessary to live a rich, meaningful life. One way to begin this rebellion is through the act of radical acceptance. Radical acceptance, as proposed by therapist Tara Brach, is the practice of embracing life as it is, without judgment or resistance. It is a practice rooted in mindfulness and compassion, acknowledging the full range of our emotional experience without trying to change or escape it. It means accepting that you will have moments of sadness, frustration, and despair, and that those moments are not only inevitable but essential to your personal growth. In a culture that demands constant happiness, the idea of embracing difficult emotions may seem counterintuitive. We are taught to resist pain, to push it away as quickly as possible. But the truth is that emotional pain, far from being something to avoid, is a profound teacher. The great existentialist philosophers, like Jean-Paul Sartre, argued that suffering is not something to be eradicated but something to be lived through. In confronting suffering directly, we come face to face with the raw truth of our existence, the reality of being human. We gain a deeper understanding of our own psyche, and in doing so, we open ourselves up to the possibility of profound transformation. By rejecting the ideal of constant happiness, we free ourselves from the illusion that our lives must conform to a singular, predictable narrative. Life is unpredictable, messy, and full of contradictions. Embracing this chaos, embracing the unpredictability of life, is the first step toward breaking free. Nietzsche's idea of the will to power, which encourages us to confront challenges head-on and transform adversity into strength, offers a profound lesson. Rather than seeking to avoid pain, we should seek to transcend it, finding meaning even in the most difficult moments. This rebellion is not about abandoning happiness altogether, but about reorienting our entire approach to life. It is about rejecting the binary thinking that categorizes certain emotions as good, like happiness, and others as bad, like sadness or fear. Emotions are not black and white. They are complex and nuanced, and they each hold valuable lessons for us. By accepting this complexity, we allow ourselves to experience life in its fullest sense, without clinging to a false ideal. An essential part of this rebellion is authenticity. To be truly free, we must dare to be ourselves, to embrace the parts of us that are messy, flawed, and imperfect. This is a radical act in a world that celebrates perfection and idealized versions of success. But authenticity requires courage. It means letting go of the persona we project to the outside world and allowing ourselves to be seen as we truly are. It means letting go of the pressure to conform to societal expectations of happiness and instead choosing to live in alignment with our true selves. Take, for example, the stories of those who have truly transformed their lives by embracing authenticity and embracing the darker aspects of their experiences. The writer and philosopher Albert Camus, in his exploration of the absurd, the realization that life is fundamentally meaningless, yet we continue to search for meaning, encouraged us to rebel against the existential void by living with full awareness of its challenges. Rather than seeking artificial happiness, Camus advocated for living with full awareness of life's contradictions, with courage and defiance in the face of absurdity. This is where the real power lies. The more we resist our authentic selves, the more we become ensnared in the trap of forced happiness. But when we stop pretending, when we stop performing for the world, we reclaim our agency. We begin to see that our worth does not depend on our happiness. It depends on our ability to live authentically, to face the truth of who we are, without shame or self-deception. The rebellion is not a rejection of happiness as a fleeting, momentary experience, but a rejection of the idea that happiness should be the sole guiding force in our lives. Happiness, in its purest sense, is not a permanent state, but a temporary feeling, something to be embraced when it comes, and just as easily let go when it fades. It is not something to be chased, but something to be lived alongside the full spectrum of human experience. In history, there are countless examples of those who rebelled against conventional norms and created new ways of being. Think of the Stoics, who embraced suffering and hardship as essential parts of the human condition, or the Romantics, who reveled in the sublime tension of human emotions. These thinkers and movements were not afraid to confront the messiness of life. They did not cling to an unrealistic ideal of happiness, but instead allowed the complexities of life to be their guide. We can learn from these rebels. We, too, can choose to stop pretending. We can embrace the full range of our emotional experiences, knowing that true freedom comes from living in alignment with our authentic selves, not with the artificial expectations placed upon us. This rebellion, this shift in perspective, is the key to breaking free from the tyranny of happiness. It's a rebellion that demands courage, vulnerability, and self-awareness. But in doing so, it frees us from the chains that have bound us for so long. And when we let go of the need for constant happiness, we discover something far more powerful, a deeper, richer connection to the truth of who we are and the world we live in. This is the beginning of true freedom. The question is, are we brave enough to embrace it? Now that we've unraveled the complexities of the pursuit of happiness and begun to understand the hidden costs of constantly chasing it, we arrive at the most profound question of all. What is the ultimate truth beneath this pursuit? What does it mean to truly live? And what is the deeper realization that will transform our understanding of reality? The answer, as it often is in life, is paradoxical. The ultimate truth is that the key to a fulfilled existence lies not in the constant pursuit of happiness, but in the embrace of life's full range of emotions and experiences. True peace does not come from achieving perpetual joy, but from accepting the inevitable fluctuations of life, the joy, the sorrow, the triumph, and the suffering, as all integral parts of the human journey. To understand this truth, we must look beyond the surface, beyond the carefully curated images of happiness that dominate our culture, and delve into the heart of what it means to be human. And in doing so, we uncover something far more profound than the fleeting moments of pleasure we often equate with happiness. The ultimate truth is that happiness, in the conventional sense, is not the answer. Instead, it is the willingness to experience life in its fullness, without trying to control or manipulate the emotions that arise. This truth is echoed in the words of Viktor Frankl, who, after surviving the horrors of a concentration camp, realized that the key to human resilience was not in avoiding suffering, but in finding meaning through it. Frankl's message was clear: even in the darkest moments of existence, we have the power to choose how we respond. The suffering he endured did not define him. Rather, it was his response to it, his ability to find meaning within the chaos, that allowed him to survive. This is where true liberation lies, not in escaping the darkness, but in embracing it. Happiness, when viewed as a singular goal, creates an illusion of perfection that blinds us to the richness of life. It becomes a force that narrows our scope, keeping us focused solely on achieving a transient emotion. But when we learn to accept the entirety of our experience, when we allow ourselves to feel deeply, to be present with all of life's moments, both the painful and the joyful, something extraordinary happens. We are freed from the tyranny of happiness, liberated from the endless chase that defines our modern existence. Consider for a moment the profound paradox at the core of this realization. The more we let go of the need for happiness, the more we begin to find it in places we never expected. By accepting that pain and discomfort are just as much a part of life as joy, we free ourselves from the shackles of disappointment and frustration. We stop demanding that life fit into neat, predictable categories, and instead, we allow it to unfold in all its complexity. In the end, this journey towards true freedom is a journey of self-awareness. It is about waking up to the reality of who we are, not the version of ourselves we project to the world, but the authentic and perfect human beings we are at our core. It is about confronting our fears, embracing our shadows, and finding meaning in the very struggles we so often seek to avoid. This is the ultimate truth, that life is not about becoming happy, but about learning how to live with depth and authenticity, even in the face of suffering. As we let go of our attachment to happiness as a constant state, we begin to see the beauty of life in its rawest, most unrefined form. We recognize that happiness is fleeting, a momentary spark that cannot be captured or held onto indefinitely. But within that spark, there is something deeper, a profound understanding that life, in all its complexity, is worth living. There is meaning to be found in every experience, and every emotion, whether it be joy or sorrow. This truth is not just an intellectual realization, it is a lived experience, a shift in perspective that ripples outward, affecting every aspect of our lives. We begin to appreciate the small, fleeting moments, the quiet moments of solitude, the laughter shared with friends, the quiet reflection in the midst of chaos. We begin to recognize that the essence of life is not in its moments of happiness, but in its richness, and its ability to surprise us with its beauty, its pain, and its joy. In the end, the ultimate truth is not a grand revelation that changes everything in an instant. It is a subtle, ongoing realization that builds over time, one moment at a time, as we learn to live more fully. It is the understanding that happiness, in its traditional sense, is not something to be sought after, but something to be experienced as part of the broader human journey. And in embracing that journey, with all its ups and downs, we discover a deeper, more lasting peace. As you stand on the edge of this realization, look back at the life you've lived so far. See how far you've come. And then, allow yourself to let go of the need to chase an ever-elusive ideal. Step into the fullness of your own experience, unafraid of the darkness and the light, and embrace the ultimate truth, that life, in all its complexity, is not something to be fixed or perfected, but something to be lived with presence, authenticity, and depth. And in that presence, you will find something greater than happiness, you will find peace.